Welcome to today's GWS Wellness Sector Spotlight. Our topic is movement and mental wellness, the latest trends in exercise that are redefining mental health. So my name is Susie Ellis. You can move that slide off because I need to put there. Thank you, Beatrice. My name is Susie Ellis, and I have a great team here at the GWS. Beatrice and Nancy are on the call.
Oh, you muted yourself, Susie.
Susie, you're muted. Oh,
okay, thank you. I have unmuted myself. So I wanted to just say, I'm Susie Ellis, and I head up a great team here at the GWS. Our purpose is joining together, shaping the future, and that's what we do with our virtual Zoom events as well as in person. And while we love to gather in person with the Global Wellness Summit each year, we have also had tremendous success, as many of you might know, with our Zoom gatherings. Today, we have had, the full number is 1,261 people who have signed up for this call from 79 countries. That's a big number, and I think it speaks to the importance of the topic. And while they won't all be on the call, what we do is we record them and then send this to everyone after. So all those people will be able to hear the discussion. As you probably know, some of you and hopefully most of you now, that our 2021 Global Wellness Summit, which is our 15th, is going to take place in Boston this year at the beautiful Encore Boston Harbor. And it's going to be in person and virtually. The starting date is November 30th. But we also do some Zoom gatherings, as you know, and one of them is our wellness masterclasses that Nancy Davis hosts. And we also do something called reverse pitch sessions, which are exciting conversations with investors, also hosted by Nancy. And the next one is scheduled for next Wednesday at July 28th. So Nancy, I just want you to say a moment about that, and also just want you to have a chance to say hi.
Thank you, Susie. Yes, next week's reverse pitch is with Willow Growth Partners. It's an extraordinary company investing primarily in women-owned businesses and in Gen Z. And we've got incredible guests on that. And that is where an investor talks about how and why they invest in what they invest in, and the investor and the people who they've invested in share the secret to getting an investment. So very, very excited about that. And just welcome to everybody. Incredible showing today, and very excited for this call.
Thank you, Nancy. And I'm also wanting to just mention that we have a new series starting August 3rd, and it's with Dr. Nicola Findlay. And it is titled, The Doctor is Inclusive, as she will be addressing the issues of diversity and inclusion in the wellness arena, and those will take place once a quarter. And I should mention that that title, which I love, The Doctor is Inclusive, came from Nancy, who is our Chief Creative Officer, magician. So Nancy, thank you once again. I call her our naming savant. Anyway, so that's going to start. And then one announcement from our sister organization, the Global Wellness Institute, is that the first ever Wellness, Real Estate, and Community Symposium, which is a one-day event, is going to take place in New York on September 28th. And finally, the virtual gatherings, which is what you're part of today, is our Wellness Sector Spotlights, and that is what I host. And today, we have an expert panel, and I do mean expert. They will be taking a deep dive into the important findings from the John W. Brick Foundation's new landmark research titled Move Your Mental Health Report. If you can show that slide, Beatrice. I just want to thank, and I think we should all thank, the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation for contributing this value report. They paid for it, and it is free for all of us. It is to the fitness world, the wellness world, the mental health world. And Beatrice is going to share a link to this in the chat so you can access both the executive summary and the full report. And it will also be on the follow-up email that goes out later today. Now, I have the privilege of introducing the moderator for this discussion. It is Cassandra Viton, who you can see on the right-hand side of this slide. She is the executive director of the John W. Brick Foundation, and it is under her leadership that this landmark research report was conducted. She's going to introduce the other panel members who you see pictured here, Victor Brick, Lynn Brick, Jerry Boddicker, Alyssa Appel, and I believe there's one additional panelist whose photo we don't have, Eli Putterman. So you'll meet all of those people. But just a few things about Cassandra. She is very impressive. She is a PhD, a licensed clinical psychologist, a mind-body researcher, and author of a lot of scientific journals, and how many books? 3 books. She's passionate about changing the way we treat mental health. So it's my privilege now to turn the moderating over to you, Cassandra. And I understand most people call you Cassie, so I hope it's okay that that's what I call you, and we call you Cassie as well. So over to you, Cassie.
Thank you so much, Susie. It's so wonderful to be here. And the Global Wellness Summit, along with the Global Wellness Institute, are valued friends of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation, longtime friends. Victor Brick, our founder, serves on your board, I believe, at the Global Wellness Institute. And it's just a pleasure to see everyone here. I'm looking forward to diving into the data. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and a mind-body medicine researcher. I'm also an associate scientist at the University of California, San Diego. And we have been working on this report for quite a while. I want to start by introducing you to the incredible founders of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation, Victor and Lynn Brick, who are not only amazing human beings, but also are the largest franchise holders of the Planet Fitness gym franchise, owning over 75 Planet Fitness gyms, as well as their own chain called Brick Bodies. They are pioneers in the fitness industry, and they're going to tell you about the founding of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation. Victor and Lynn?
Well, thank you, Cassie. As Cassie said, I'm Victor Brick.
And I'm Lynn Brick.
And
Good morning.
Good morning, Salbona. And we are the founders of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation. The foundation was named after my brother, John, who suffered from schizophrenia his entire life. And in all the years of treatment, often in the best hospitals and institutions in the country, the United States, he was never once put on a fully integrated program that employed things like exercise, nutrition, and mind-body practices, along with the traditional forms of treatment, such as pharmaceuticals, institutionalization, and medication. And upon his death, more from the medication than from the schizophrenia. And he died an early death, and we don't have the time for me to go into everything about it, but obviously it was very traumatic for the family. We were by then in the fitness industry, and we vowed that we would try to do everything we could so that other families and other individuals would not have to go through what my family went through and what my brother went through. So we started the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation in his memory. And the vision of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation is to change the way the world treats mental health. And how do we want to do this? We want to do this by integrating salutogenic processes, which means wellness, really salutogenic wellness, such as exercise, nutrition, and mind-body practices into treating mental illness and promoting mental wellness. We do this, we will accomplish this purpose one of 3 ways. The first is research. So we fund and promote evidence-based research. The second way is that we create, fund, and promote programs and services. We don't create them all. We fund and promote other services as well. And we serve as a collaborative hub. The third way is a collaborative hub to where we bring people together like this meeting, like the Move Your Mental Health report. That's part of the research and it's part of the collaboration. And we get people out of their silos and start working together on this pandemic called mental health. That's one of the reasons why I'm on the Global Wellness Summit board, is to try to get fitness and wellness realizing we're all playing the same game. So you're going to hear today a lot about evidence-based research, but I want to make it personal for a moment. And a couple of years ago, Lynn and I donated some exercise equipment to a hospital, to an adolescent ward at a world-renowned hospital where my brother was once a patient. And when we went to look at the ward the first time I'd been on the ward since my brother was an adolescent, a teenager. And we walked through the door and I looked over to the right to see if the isolation room was still there. And the isolation room was where they would put my brother and others like him when he would become unmanageable. And they would put him in a straitjacket, they would put wet towels on him, they would confine him in a bed, and they would stick him in this padded room, the isolation room. And I looked, and there it was. Now, they didn't put him in straitjackets anymore. They didn't put the wet towels on him anymore. They didn't restrain him anymore, but they would put them in there and let him run around in this padded room, and so they wouldn't hurt themselves and others until they brought their energy levels down. We gave this adolescent ward several pieces of exercise equipment. And the last time we checked with the nursing staff on that ward, the use of that isolation room had decreased 90%. That is the power of exercise and movement on mental health. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Cassie.
Thank you, Victor and Lynn. And just so the group knows, the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation has now donated over $1.5 million to similar programs, as well as cutting edge research. And so I just want to really honor Victor and Lynn for their dedication and for really working to make a difference in the world. So what we'd like to share with you today is a little bit about this report that we have just created on movement and mental health. So many people think that mental health happens inside the head, inside the skull. It's in the mind and it's in the brain only. And as a licensed clinical psychologist, I can tell you that in my training program, we received zero training in exercise and nutrition and their impact on mental health. And that is the truth for most mental health professionals who are trained in the United States. We know, though, that mental health actually happens in your whole body, not just your brain, but everything affects your mental and emotional health. What you eat, how you move, your hormones, your gut, it all matters to your mental health. And it's not just in your body, but in your relationships, your environment. It all works together as a whole to determine your stress level, your resilience, and your mental state. So you come in with a set of genetics, you're predisposed to certain levels of mental wellness or mental illness. But then it's really how you behave and how you interact with your environment that determines how it's going to be expressed. So we know there are tons of different ways for people to enhance their mental health. And these are not just sort of luxury items like the cherry on top of the sundae or sort of optional items once you've done the real mental health treatment. This is the real mental health treatment. It affects your gene expression, your hormones, your neurotransmitters, your brain function, just like medication does. And so our goal here at the John W. Brick Foundation is to make sure that everyone, including mental health professionals, fitness and wellness professionals, and the general public, know that there is an entire universe of practices that people can engage in, they can be empowered to use in themselves and their families on a daily basis to assist with their mental health and mental wellness. Today, we're really going to focus in on body movement and exercise. We've recently created this report called Move Your Mental Health. It is a review of 30 years of scientific evidence, published peer-reviewed papers in scientific journals on the role of exercise and physical activity on mental health. We found 1,444 articles. I'll tell you some of the findings, but I want you to know right away that you can go to the johnwbrickfoundation.org and check out this report. Not only can you download a 12-page executive summary, as well as the 60-page report, you can also engage in a data visualization online. You can see it here on the right, where you can search for any type of exercise and any type of mental health outcome, and it will show you all of the articles that have been published on that type of exercise or on that type of mental health outcome. Then you have the opportunity to click through and see the actual articles on your own. In this report, we review the overall data on physical activity, exercise, and its link to mental health. We look at how it might result in mental health outcomes, through what brain pathways, through what hormonal pathways, through what psychological pathways. And we also dive deeply into 20 forms of exercise. Here you see cycling, and you can see that there are 12 studies on state anxiety and cycling, showing that 9 of those articles were positive, showing a positive relationship. 2 of them were neutral, and 1 of them showed a negative outcome. And so as you go through this report, you can find out exactly what types of exercise have what outcomes. I'm just going to give you some key highlights, and then our panelists are going to expand upon those highlights. One is that our report shows that exercise should be actually prescribed for people presenting with depression and anxiety. There is enough evidence today to show that someone who's presenting with depression to a mental health clinic or to someone that they're talking to should automatically be given not only an exercise program, but an exercise program that the evidence shows 3 to 5 times a week of moderate to vigorous exercise for 30 to 45 minutes. Now, if any of you have ever been depressed, and I have been in my life, you know that the very last thing you want to do when you're depressed is get up and exercise moderate to vigorously for 35 to 45 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week. So another very important part of this report is showing that in the beginning, someone should actually be assigned a wellness professional, a fitness professional, to help them gear up to that level, to ramp up over time. They might even start with 5 or 10 minutes. It's sort of like if you get an injury, you get a physical therapist to help you through it. We believe that people who submit with depression and anxiety should have the same thing. They should be working with an instructor, ramping up over time. There should be attention paid to what types of exercise are rewarding to that person. If somebody hates the treadmill, it's not a great idea to try to get them to use it 3 to 5 times a week. But if they love cycling, then great. Also, group exercise is important for the social support it adds. And now it's my real pleasure to turn this over to this incredible man, Jerry Boddicker, who has been an international leader in mental wellness. He is the chair of the Mental Wellness Initiative of the Global Wellness Initiative. And Jerry is going to tell us a little bit more about this idea that really the Global Wellness Institute and their research team has promoted in their recent report about the difference between mental wellness, or the salutogenic approach, versus mental illness, or the pathogenic approach, and also a little about the dual continuum model of mental health. Jerry, would you mind talking to us a little bit about these things? You're on mute, Jerry.
Thank you, Cassie. I'd like to really give huge kudos to you and your team for a truly remarkable report, going through just mountains of evidence and sifting through it, what works for which, and providing weighted evidence in support of the big point of the report, which is the prescribability of exercise for different mental health conditions. And that's got serious implications for insurance, for public health, and so on. And so I truly want to salute you, your team, Lynn and Victor, for promoting and enabling this. It's a landmark document, and I really encourage everybody to look at it carefully. I was personally blown away by it. As Cassie mentioned, I chair the Mental Wellness Initiative of the Global Wellness Institute. I want to give thanks to Susie Ellis for the initial conversations that led to the foundation of this initiative. And this you see on the screen is a report that we prepared, where we really just thought as far as we could about what are all the different pathways that promote mental wellness, mental well-being, and not just mental health, but flourishing, thriving, even looking beyond that to what is the end point to human development? What do different cultures, both Western and Eastern, say we can get to in human evolution? What's the big picture? And what does the brain look like as it progresses in this direction. And so neuroscience is really very important as part of this. We're beginning to understand what happens in the brain as we evolve, as our different wellness pathways change mind and body. And Professor Lisa Appel, who's going to be speaking, has been one of the great pioneers of seeing how epigenetic material also changes, not simply the brain and the body, but genetic material, epigenetic material, in the direction of enhancing longevity and health throughout the lifespan. I'm going to just put in the chat box here a link to that report. Oh, it didn't do it. Well, perhaps Beatrice can share a link to that. We also have a chapter on well-being and mental wellness in the Oxford Research Encyclopedia of Global Public Health to put this perspective into the public health literature, which we felt was important given the volume of evidence. And so if you look at the vertical axis here, mental illness and mental health, that's what we've talked about for generations. Like Cassie, I trained as a clinical psychologist as well. And like Cassie, we didn't hear anything about exercise or nutrition, hardly anything about social influences, environmental influences, nature, happiness, laughter. And so when we worked on the white paper on mental wellness, one of my goals was to write the psychology that I would like to have learned when I trained, because it's so much more than we ever thought. But that vertical axis, mental illness to mental health, you can see below the mental illness, the bullet points on that: instability, isolation, negative coping, and above the mental health, resilience, positive relationships, positive coping, high functioning. But then if you look at the vertical axis, this is really the new paradigm. So we're talking about what in the report, and drawing on pioneering work by the Global Wellness Institute in the mental wellness economy, this dual continuum model looks at flourishing and languishing. So flourishing is so much more than just positive. It's optimal, it's growing, it's joy, it's happiness, it's life satisfaction, it's strong relationships, personal growth, peak performance. And we don't really know what peak is for human potential. When we read the accounts from Eastern literature about enlightenment, about higher states of human experience, we have to ask ourselves, what sort of brain state is that? We know what the brain state of meditation looks like, different meditations, prefrontal alpha coherence, coherence between left and right hemispheres, subcortical reorganization. So what if this just continues to grow and grow? That's what we're talking about in that vertical axis, the huge potential for flourishing, but beyond that, to what Maslow called, way beyond self-actualization, the transcendent level of functioning. So that really, I think, is a perspective we want to bring. I know in this time of the pandemic, it's very hard to think like that. We're wanting to think, how can I just stay afloat? How can I get through this? How can I optimize and pull myself out of the daily challenge of mood? But actually, sometimes we can think that the downside of mood, of optimal mood, can be not just how do we remove depression, but that the lack of access to bliss, to happiness, to joy is the cause of depression and anxiety. And so what the BRIC Foundation has brought out is the huge importance of exercise, absolutely critical importance of exercise in facilitating those experiential dimensions all the anatomical and physiological, and as we're learning, epigenetic correlates of happiness and joy, and hence human growth throughout the lifespan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerry. It's really helpful. And thank you for the tremendous work that you and the Mental Wellness Initiative do all over the world.
Thank you. I'd like to particularly pay tribute to my team who worked so hard on that white paper and also have continued getting the message out through talks and articles and so on since then. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I want to encourage people to please put questions in the chat. Tell us what you think about what you're hearing. And, you know, just like we're sort of turning the idea of mental health and mental illness on its head by looking more closely at mental wellness, we're also turning the idea of stress on its head. And Victor, I want to go back to you for a moment because, you know, a lot of times people think always about stress reduction when we're thinking of increasing mental wellness, relaxation, down regulating everything, chilling out. But one of the things this report shows is that actually positive stress, pushing yourself, can lead to psychological resilience and boost mood. I hope you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Certainly, Cassie, thank you. And it is surprising, one of the things that the report showed was that a lack of stress is not necessarily a good thing. And this report, quite frankly, supported, the Move Your Mental Health report, supported a lot of new models that have emerged in the treatment of mental health and the promotion of mental wellness, such as the dual continuum and such as the Yerkes-Dodson law. And the Yerkes-Dodson law basically states that there is an optimum stress, a bell-shaped curve. There is a part of a level of stress that is optimum for an increase in performance. In the rise in this chart, you have performance. In the run, you have level of stress. If you have too little stress, if you look at the chart, you'll see you get boredom, you get a comfort zone. It's kind of like lifting weights. It's kind of like trying to learn a musical instrument or a foreign language. If you never extend yourself, you get no improvement. You've got to get into that positive stress area, and you see the positive stress, the optimal growth and learning. It's also growth in terms of mental wellness. And remember, it's what Jerry's talking about. This is not static. It's a fluid, and you move up and down, and going from languishing to flourishing. You want to continually move up the vertical axis. If you get too much stress, then you get distressed, you get exhaustion, you get breakdown. I'm taking yoga now, and sometimes my instructor puts me in too much stress, and I struggle. So this is the thing that we need to realize, that the reduction of stress is not necessarily the best way to promote mental wellness and to treat mental illness. And research showed that the word vigorous exercise, moderate to vigorous exercise. So you really, when you exercise, there are three things you want to look at: frequency, intensity, time. Fit, frequency, intensity, time. The research showed it's better to do more frequent times than one long session. It also showed that it's better to do shorter, intense time activity than longer, less intense, a la walking for an hour, as opposed to walking very quickly or jogging for 20 minutes. And the third thing is that time is often overrated. And as I said, these long sessions, it's better. Frequency, intensity are more critical than the amount of time invested. And quite frankly, this is good news to a lot of people, because let's face it, what's one of the main reasons people don't work out besides boredom? And I could go into boredom and talk about that indefinitely, but it's lack of time. So the findings of the report, again, moderate to vigorous, get in that positive stress, and frequent. Once a week doesn't get it. Once a month doesn't get it. Multiple times a week. Is that correct, Cassie?
That's right. Yeah. And I don't want to oversimplify it. There were also, obviously taking a walk, being outside, getting any form of movement, even 5 minutes a day, can have a profound effect on people's moods. It's just that when we're really looking at optimal performance, when we're looking at treating something like depression or anxiety, we've got to pump it up, just like we would do physical therapy for rehabilitating a physical injury. I'd move on.
Getting
Go
back,
ahead, Victor.
well, getting back to that positive stress, for some people, 5-minute walk is positive stress.
Correct.
Yeah.
So it's for you. It's not a standard. It's for you. What is optimum positive stress? Which is why you always want to start with a coach, a trainer, somebody that can help you, because the tendency is to do one of two things for most people: too much or too little. It's an art to find that positive stress.
And Lynn, you have probably coached more people, trained more people, not to mention hundreds of trainers themselves. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that whole piece of it. What the fitness professional, what's the role of the fitness professional?
Absolutely. They play a huge role, especially in the vertical axis of salutogenic, helping people discover their own means of self-care, and which I love. And it's so important to understand that what the report showed was that people need help. People need the help of a personal trainer, a certified personal trainer, or a coach who can help them, number one, discover what motivates them individually. Number two, to help them to kickstart their wellness journey so that they are going to trip over their own anxieties or fears. And number three, to help hold their hand and be their mentor, their friend, their coach, to help them to find the right path that's best for them. So a certified personal trainer or a coach is critical. And Victor kind of took the words right out of my mouth. They really help people in so many ways. And the report also showed that group fitness classes or group sessions or group training sessions or experiences are also extremely helpful. Connecting people to one another. It's not just about the connection with the trainer, but it also connecting to one another. Not only helps improve fun, helps improve socialization, but it also helps people to retain or improves exercise adherence when they can work out with their friends and their buddies. And so often what we find in the fitness and wellness industry is that the friendships or the relationships go beyond the classroom, beyond the exercise experience. So why is this so important? Well, two of the key elements that affect mental health and well-being are isolation and lack of coping skills. And that's the biggest solution that we found that the group exercise as well as personal training experiences provide. They provide the trainer ability to help people to discover their coping skills and helps people to overcome isolation through connectivity.
Thank you
Anything
so
else
much,
to add?
Lynn. Well said. Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Cassie,
Victor.
correct me if I'm wrong, but the report implied or recommended initially a one-on-one relationship
Right.
is best because people are a little well, they need the coping skills more, and they're also a little hesitant to integrate. But over time, group training and group classes and group activities are optimum because of that connectivity. As they get more confidence, as they develop the coping skills, now they want the connectivity of like-minded people. As long as, like I said, it's into positive stress. I get in these yoga classes where they're in over my head and it's not positive stress.
Yeah, and that's absolutely true. And a few of the trends that the report identified were very interesting in this regard. One is called affect-based exercise. And in psychology, affect means emotion. So you could think of it as emotion-based exercise. The same way that we track the number of steps or the number of miles we get on a treadmill or our heart rate, you can have a trainer or a fitness professional, or even for yourself, rate the level of enjoyment. How much do you derive reward from the exercise, and move people around until you find types of exercise that give them the highest reward, because that increases the likelihood that they'll continue to do it and also boost their mood more. Another was exergaming, where some of you probably are very aware. Peloton, using virtual reality, using back in the day, the Wii. things that make exercising into a game, even at home, are really good trends to watch because they're more motivating. They capitalize on the dopamine system, where not only are you feeling better, but you're getting these little badges and you're getting beating other people at the game, and that really helps a lot too. And so what I'd like to do on that note is move to Eli and Alyssa, who are both scientists who are actively engaged in studying exercise, fitness, movement, and mental health. Eli Petterman is a professor at the University of British Columbia. And Eli, I was hoping that you might talk to us a little bit about some of the alternative forms of movement that have been shown to be effective in the treatment of mental illness and promotion of mental wellness, and the importance of tailoring a program to the individual.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Can you all hear me? I'm sitting at the top of a rock working with a generator powered internet. So hopefully none of this stops for me. Thank you very much for the invitation. I want to just, echo what is being said so far. This is a phenomenal report. It's a report that we rarely see in the academic world that is so comprehensive, attacking so many important questions. So thank you so much, Cassie, for leading this initiative, and to the Brick Foundation for it. So I think we can tackle the first part of the question. Different types of exercises that we can engage in, and different forms. What I love about the report is how comprehensive it is, that really what it's showing is that anything works. Any ways of moving our bodies work. And I think what you're hitting on in some of your summaries is really that we need to find the thing that we are passionate about. And that's a hard thing to do if you haven't exercised for many, many years or ever in your entire life, or if your early life experiences in the gym or in gym class were really, really negative. There's a fear in going into it. There's a complete lack of understanding. And there's a societal kind of experience of what you feel in your body and in your mind, that you don't want to move your body in front of other people. So I think what we need to do is offer the many different types of varieties. So we know that high intensity interval training works, but is that for everybody? And is it for people who haven't moved their bodies in 40, 50 years? There's cycling, which is fantastic. There's hiking. There's, green exercise was one of the points that you really highlighted in the report. And we just finished a meta-analysis in our lab. One of my grad students' master's thesis was a meta-analysis showing that green exercise has a special benefit to not just the physiological response to being outside. So your heart rate doesn't go up as much. So you're pushing yourself, but you're not pushing yourself as much as at the gym, but that you're also not feeling that exhausted from it. So you can go harder and feel less exhausted. So you'll want to do it again. And that kind of hits that sweet spot that you were saying about affect-based type of exercise, where you're doing it because you like it. You're doing it because you really are passionate about it. And when you haven't worked out in a very long time, it's important to try many different ways of moving our bodies. So I think, there's cycling, there's yoga, there's Tai Chi, there's Qigong, there's swimming.
And
the
Eli,
greatest amount
just to interrupt you for a moment, you've done studies on dance, you've done studies on, you're even part of a study now on floor hockey for veterans in the Veterans Center. So cool.
Yeah, so we're currently doing a project with Dance for Women Living with HIV here in Vancouver, British Columbia. And it's a group-based dance program that's about to launch in a few months. We're currently creating our choreographies, and we're currently creating our program for the women. We had piloted last year a ball hockey program for veterans that now has received funding, nearly $1 million of funding from the Canadian Veterans Affairs. And that's allowing us to roll out a ball hockey program for veterans across the entire country. And I think we have 8 different mess halls, that's what we call them here. for the veterans to meet once a week to do a hockey program. And part of that hockey program is also providing them opportunities to connect with mental health professionals. So we're going to have a mental health professional there to make sure, because men are most likely to be veterans, or veterans are most likely to be male, and these veterans are more likely to be, and men are less likely to access care. So ensuring that we're connecting them to sport and then having someone there to be able to support them is actually a really important way of connecting these different ways of supporting people's mental health.
Thank you so much, Eli. And I want to move now to Alyssa Epple. And I should have mentioned that both Eli Pitterman and Alyssa Epple are on the scientific advisory board of the John W. Brick Mental Health Foundation. Dr. Epple is a professor at the University of California, San Francisco. She's the principal investigator on a John W. Brick Foundation funded study on high intensity interval training, the Wim Hof method, and meditation for mental health and stress and aging. And Alyssa, I'm sure you have like 100 things that you could talk about right now based on everything that's been discussed, but please give us some of your thoughts.
I am so excited. I'm like buzzing with energy, wanting to talk about everything in the chat. It is such a pleasure to be at the Global Wellness Institute, where I first met Victor and Lynn, a very significant relationship. As Cassie said, we've been spending several years on a major study, understanding different mechanisms of wellness, both low arousal and high arousal. And the kind of umbrella word is hormetic stress. So I'm going to talk a bit about hormetic stress and end with exercise. The brain trust here is amazing. The chat, just so many great points and such deep expertise. And one point that's really coming out is that it's not, the physical fitness piece, the aerobic exercise to the heart is just a piece of this. And when we approach people, we might want to think of movement instead of exercise to open the door so that they understand we're not going to drive them immediately to this aerobic level that surpasses their fitness and their ventilatory threshold and makes them feel bad. So movement and energy. Not many people understand the energy pathways. That's where more of the Eastern wisdom comes in, but we don't need to talk about the prana. We can talk about how we're moving energy through movement and thinking about focusing on the body, increasing our interoception. This is the cutting edge of neuroscience right now, is that we now understand that our ability to feel and read our body is actually a really big crux between physical health and mental health. So hormetic stress. I think all of us here love this term. It just means positive stress. It's really a very specific word that's been based in basic science on studies of cells and worms. Tremendous research literature showing that little short-term acute stressors, intermittent stressors when there's recovery, is anti-aging, turns on all sorts of cellular mechanisms to clean out the cell, rejuvenate it, and it leads to longevity of cells and longevity of worms. Now in humans, we're just way behind in the hormetic science, but exercise is the one area where we absolutely know that if we do it right, some of the pacing and timing that Victor and others have talked about, Cassie have talked about, we are creating hormetic stress. We are creating longevity. So one of my points today is that curve that Yerkes-Dodson curve that Victor showed is about immediate benefits. And that's what people want to hear: function, cognition, mood. But this also applies to aging. That exact same curve, if we put on that y-axis aging and aging processes like telomeres, it actually fits. So rather than spend time trying to tell you about molecular studies, I just sent you the link. This is a review on what is hormetic stress, what do we really mean, cellular mechanisms, and how does this fit that Yerkes-Dodson curve that we love so much, because we know there's a sweet spot for stress. And it's simple. It goes like this. We know that toxic chronic stress creates accelerated aging and early death. We know that the understimulation, the lack of engagement, is also related to shorter health span, faster mortality. It's that middle spot where people are engaging in fitness and also in experiences, novel experiences. So the mental engagement in things that are challenging is all part of longevity. So there's a curve there, figure 2. Oh, sorry, figure 1 shows that same curve, but applied to health span. Okay, so I'm going to move right to the BRIC studies. Oh, also the GWI in Palm Beach is where I think many of us met Wim Hof, and he just has brought such a lovely package to the world. Certainly didn't start with him. It brings in a lot of ancient traditions about breathing and prana and how we play with breath to create stress with retention, with hyperventilation retention. So at that Palm Beach meeting, the 4 of us, the BRICS, me and Wim, decided to study this. And so we have an ongoing study. And I'll just say that many of these methods that we're studying lead to improvements in mood, but we want to understand how and why and how they work differently. So it's a mechanistic study, and we will let you know in 2022 what those results are. But what I wanted to also talk about is, what is the next step in this report? This is an amazing report. Cassie Veaton, no one else could have done this but you. It's so ambitious. And what we know is that the evidence is there and it's not being used, it's being ignored. So there are a set of studies that the BRIC Foundation is planning. And one is in Canada that Eli can talk about. And he is helping us with the other one, which is going to be at UCSF in the psychiatry clinic, in the depression clinic, where our wait list spans over a year. We cannot possibly meet the demand. It's a public health problem. And what we will do is use the BRIC model, which is going to be a GWI model eventually. Trainers, people with expertise in fitness, the body, and motivation, being trained in mental health issues so that they can approach people with serious mental illness and depression. The last thing in the world they want to do is exercise. They're very unfit, and bring them to a level of movement and well-being. So we'll be using some of the earliest models of these trainers, and we'll be looking at cost savings and return on investment. And this audience, this institute, and the reports that Susie is always planning and working on, you know better than anyone, this is what we need to change the world. It's this type of cost savings and return on investment that is going to change policy and reimbursement. So that's our next step. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, in the chat box. But before we move into that, I just want to remind everyone, you can find out more about our work at johnwbrickfoundation.org. You can find the report. You can find tons of resources for mental wellness. You can support our work. We really appreciate all the support we can get. If you'll join us as partners, the BRIC Foundation covers all expenses, all administrative expenses, and has largely, almost completely funded the work we've done so far. And we are looking for partners who will join with us in a roadmap toward changing the way the world treats mental health. So please consider joining us. There are also multiple opportunities for for-profit companies to receive substantial exposure through a corporate sponsorship. The last thing I'd like to say is that the wellness and fitness community has a tremendous opportunity here to fill an enormous gap in this global epidemic of mental illness. They also have a tremendous opportunity to take a driving role in society toward creating a new story of mental wellness, a new story of mental health, where people don't only go to the gym, they do that, but they also have wellness professionals. Just like we have a yoga studio now on almost every corner, we'd love to see wellness professionals be elevated to the position of filling that need that Alyssa mentioned, of so many people on waiting lists who could be receiving a holistic approach to their mental health. And by the time they finish the waiting list, they might not even need the treatment anymore if they were engaging in all of these activities. The medical system can't handle it. The wellness community has the opportunity to step up here. And even the Global Wellness Institute has shown how large the mental wellness economy is. So we'd love to hear from people who want to join us in this effort The Brick Foundation is also creating a training program for fitness and wellness professionals to become certified in mental well-being, and for mental health professionals to become certified in these holistic approaches in fitness, nutrition, and mind-body practices. And so we'd really love for you to join us, and we'd like to hear any comments, any questions. Susie, you could maybe moderate this part.
Thank you, Cassie. And yeah, there are some questions. And by the way, you might want to just check your audio because you're a little in and out. So maybe just check that again. So the questions that are coming up is, one is that, is there a recording available? And the answer is yes. We record this, and yes, we will send it to all of you in a follow-up email. So that is, Nancy's answered that. And we will also send you all the links. So, you know, Jerry Boddicker mentioned a report, Cassie has mentioned reports, and so you'll get all of that. So one question that has come up a few times, and I think it's a good one, is, you know, we are hearing a lot about how important it is to have a personal trainer to get started. But let's talk about people who cannot afford a personal trainer. How do they get started, or what can be done in that regard? Any of the panelists want to take that? Just unmute yourself and address it. Jerry?
Yes, Susie, thank you. I was hoping this would come up. The whole area of self-care is one of the trends we've identified as the leading trends in mental wellness for this year. People can't get out, they can't connect with trainers in many instances. In many countries, we've got people from, you mentioned 70 countries signed up for this call. And in many countries, and I see some people from Southeast Asia and other parts of Asia where the pandemic is truly out of control, people can't get out and get to a trainer. They may not be able to even get online to a trainer if there's a fee, but self-care is extremely important. I think for many pathways, self-care is very possible. We can exercise at home, even if we're locked in. We can skip, we can dance in a room, we can dance on a square meter, we can do yoga, we can do meditation if we've learned, or if we learn how to meditate. We can watch our nutrition, particularly that's a self-feeding downward spiral of depression, poor nutrition, overweight, etc., etc. That is something we can take control of. And there's a whole field now known as nutritional psychiatry, where they're basically saying, these psychiatrists saying, first of all, let's get your diet right. And once you've got that right, come back and we'll see if there's a problem and how the problem looks after correcting your nutrition. So self-care is extremely important. In our white paper, Mental Wellness, we've listed many, many pathways that can be absorbed in a self-moderated way.
Thank you, Jerry. I think what you said about self-care is interesting, because I've been noticing that term is, you know, something that is more talked about in our wellness arena. And maybe one thing we can all do is make self-care more, you know, okay. I mean, you know, it's not it's not a negative to take care of yourself. And I do think one advantage of the pandemic has been that there is a lot more available online that is free. So I have a question for Eli, because while you were speaking, you mentioned green exercise. And the question came up, well, what is green exercise? And it's a term we're hearing more. Can you explain it a little more broadly?
Yeah, green exercise. Yeah, can you all hear me? Yeah, yeah. Okay. Green exercise is the term that we use. Some people call it blue exercise because you're in the ocean or swimming in the ocean, but it's really just being outdoors and moving your body outdoors. And I think the key part of it is that there's some there's some really good research coming out of Japan on forest bathing. This idea that when you walk through the forest, you should mindfully walk through the forest and observe and take in the experience of being in nature. There's green bathing, with forest bathing from Japan, but we also can just go out for a hike, right? We don't have to purposefully experience the nature, but just being out there has been shown to be impactful on people's minds, their mental well-being, their depression levels, their physiological reactions to stress after, like in lab studies, they've shown it just changes everything, even more than just moving your body on a treadmill. It's quite fascinating how just being outside in nature. And do they know all of the activations of like the pheromones that are coming out of the trees? Who knows? They don't know any of that stuff yet, but I'm sure at some point we will discover what is happening from the trees to us that is making us feel, be able to do more, and it could just be more oxygen, right?
Thank you,
Can
Eli.
I say, Eli, on that?
For
Yeah.
sure, we've heard that
We-
nature is a big, big, important, valuable thing. And I want to just have one final question. Sorry, Jerry, for Alyssa Appel. And I just want to remind you, Alyssa, do you remember we first met at the Aspen, at that time called Global Spa and Wellness Summit? And I just looked it up. That was in 2012. You came and spoke about telomeres when nobody had heard about it. But my question for you is actually one that was in the chat. How does fitness impact epigenetics?
Oh, good question. And I'll just mention, everyone's thinking the same thing. Susie, you're always 10 years ahead of us. So yes, you found me, and it was an introduction to data. We didn't have all the data on exercise and telomeres at that time. Telomeres are a marker of cellular aging in our cells. When we measure them at midlife, they predict early disease and mortality. Lots of meta-analyses now on how longer, more stable telomeres predict longevity. Eli Putterman, who's with us, has actually done one of the only controlled clinical trials on exercise and telomeres, and found that taking sedentary, high-stress dementia caregivers and having them build up their fitness over 6 months, starting off slow, led to longer telomeres compared to the control group. And I'm sorry to give your finding away, Eli, but Susie gave me the floor. I put your paper in the chat. So we do know from lots of cross-sectional studies that fitness, and again, it is a bell-shaped curve, but fitness promotes stronger, sturdier telomeres. And if you overtrain, you're actually damaging them. The muscle cells and the telomeres shorten. Yeah.
Alyssa, that's a fabulous wrap up from where we started. And because it's 11 o'clock Eastern time, I'm going to wrap
Susie,
it up.
can I just say one thing in closing?
Yes, 15 seconds. Go ahead.
And this is a response to a lot of comments. This is a start. We are not conclusive. This is a movement. There's so much more research that needs to be done. And please don't think of this as binary. We are not saying that movement is the answer. We are saying movement is part of the salutogenic processes. And if you look closely, mind body's in there, dogs could be in there. This is a start, and think of things as a continuum and not either or, but all of the above. So please join us in the start. And we want to know what we can do for you as well as what you can do for us.
Thank you, Victor. With your story in the beginning with your brother, it brings it all around. You're right. It's a beginning, and all of us are part of this, and there's a lot of opportunities. So thank you all, Victor, Lynn, Jerry, Alyssa, Eli, Cassandra, especially. And thank you all for joining us. And we're all in this together, and we'll all make progress together. So thank you very much, and hope to see you on the next virtual call. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.